Oh, hi.
Oh, hi. Ohio.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. But first, welcome to episode 35 of the Whiskey Podcast. I'm Chudata.
I am Nate Fu.
And yes, this is 35. Next week, if you're only listening on the podcast, you'll finally get to hear 33.
And 34 and 35.
Well, 34 is the week after.
Right.
And we'll do 2 weeks after that for 35.
We're going to have 3 episodes in 3 weeks?
No, 2 weeks after. I'm going to give a little break between it. Try and set our rhythm again.
Okay.
Because it's all about the movement.
Right.
The rhythm.
Right.
Something.
Motion of the ocean.
Yes. It's not the length of the episode. It's the regularity. I don't know. This is taking a very different turn with all the innuendos. All right.
And there goes Kerrigan.
Yeah. Bye, Kerrigan.
Oh, it's your Wookiee.
Oh, there
Lego.
goes my security key. Hopefully it didn't break in there.
Yep. If the stream suddenly goes offline, we know what happened.
Yep. All right. So I always start off with what we're drinking. We're drinking
Old Forrester 1920 Prohibition style. Now tell me where you got the recommendation for this.
So I was on a call with a lot of my coworkers waiting for a client to show up this past week. And it turns out that pretty much our entire senior management and above are whiskey and bourbon drinkers, which I'd recommend they come listen to our podcast. But, one of the key people brought up, he, grew up, born and raised in Tennessee on Bourbon Row.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like his go-to has been, Old Forester, Prohibition, 1920.
Okay.
Like, all right. So I blatantly have to give this a try.
Right. He posted the message in our own little private DM. He was like, hey, we got to pick this up on a recommendation from one of my coworkers. And I'm like, all right, no problem. We'll pick it up before the next show. And so 30 minutes ago, I run over to Total Wine and I'm like, okay, let's go find this stuff. See if I can.
That's good.
I'm reluctant to sip this. So I find this on the shelf and I go, all right, well, they have it. Great. And I pull it off the rack. And the first thing I see on the label is 115 proof. And again, I will state, I have a long-standing rule, which I actually can't honestly say that anymore, that I don't drink flammable drinks. And yet here we are again with something over 100 proof.
Flammability.
Screw my liver.
You don't need it anyway. It regrows or something.
Mm. Okay.
Right?
That's actually, it tastes 115 proof, but not in a bad way.
Right. It's not like we're just going to burn you for the sake of burning it.
Right.
It's, no, there's a good flavor profile. It's definitely a different taste after you take your first sip compared to, just letting it sit for a second.
Right. I definitely, with 3 cubes that are almost gone in here, I definitely would not have drank this straight up.
At least drink this straight up and...
So to your cohort that recommended this, good call. I'm pleasantly surprised.
Thanks, JJ.
Thank you, JJ. So... yeah, with that out of the way, and to my eventual demise here over the course of the next likely an hour, we do kind of have a hard out today because
we do, because your Bengals are in the playoffs.
Not only in the playoffs, and if you listen to the last episode, when I was in full regalia, we had broken a 31-year drought of playoff success, and yet we're still moving on and moving on and moving on. We're in the AFC Championship.
Knock on all the wood.
Yeah, knock on all the wood. We win this one. We're in the Super Bowl for the first time since 1989.
Mm-hmm.
So, praying we don't have to play the 49ers yet again.
Right.
But the alternative is playing the Rams at home in SoFi Stadium. So I don't know if there's a best case scenario here.
Well, here today we're playing the Kansas City, right?
Kansas City Chiefs, yes. And
I say we, like I haven't just jumped on the bandwagon since
Hey, you know what?
you guys are super fans.
You know how many people have messaged me over the course of the last 2 weeks that have been like, I'm rooting for you guys. And I'm like, jump on the bandwagon. I don't care. We've been relegated to obscurity for so long. I'll take any and all support that I can get.
Fair enough.
So yeah, welcome to the bandwagon. We're happy to have you. If you fall off, after the end of the season, then fuck you.
We've seen your analytics.
Right.
We know roughly in the world where you might be.
Right. So yeah, the episode today is growing older.
Yeah.
And to that we mark the occasion of your youngest.
My only at the
Your
moment.
only, right? Not for lack of trying.
Right. No, we've been definitely doing the practice.
Just turned 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
What a freaking trip that's been.
Yeah, and so like just to put it in perspective for people listening to this, she was born and we left the hospital 3 weeks before the first COVID lockdown went into place.
Mm-hmm.
And so her entire life has been in this unique environment.
Right.
And I mean, we've still managed to go out. She's seen family. She sees other people. We take her places. But the traditional, childhood expectations were kind of thrown on their head.
Mm-hmm.
I lucked out in the fact that I was home and got to see all of it and participate in all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And found a job that was like, oh, okay, yeah, you can work remote. That's cool. But had things been different, it would be a much different relationship, much different circumstances to where we are today.
Right. And then, there's also the benefit of she does have her two older finger quotes sisters because they're not cousins. Who are we kidding at this point?
Yeah, they're always together.
Right. So she does at least
they
get
see each other every morning.
Yeah, she at least gets some socialization. Like I couldn't imagine where you would be at this point if she didn't.
Right.
She didn't have that interaction. It was just mom and dad, and she's already pretty well attached to you guys as it is.
Well, I mean, I know people. So there is a thought process for a lot of people, especially not over the last decade, but, more prevalent between when we had our own kids and when we were kids ourselves, that the mom would stay home and really not leave the house for the first year.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a security type thing. That was a, just logistics of trying to get a kid out of the house solo.
Right.
And, now everyone was kind of forced into that situation.
Exactly.
And so, again, because the families are so close and because we've got in-laws that are right around the corner and things like that, we got to expand a little bit there. So she's socially developed very well, I would say.
Yes.
She doesn't like crowds, but I don't like crowds.
Sure.
Most people don't like crowds, so there's that.
I mean, especially like with my two, I don't know that they dislike crowds more than they dislike someone else getting the attention that they want.
Very true. Yeah, there's definitely that.
So, but yeah, that's. I mean, it's a trip because we recorded our first episode. Right about the time.
It was May 2020. I
Right.
think was the first episode.
Right when things were starting to settle down and you were getting over that, what the fuck do I do with a newborn?
Right.
Right.
Like, oh, okay. There's that blob that's now doing a little more general human stuff and less blobby stuff.
Right. And not just its entire existence is not to poop, cry, and try to kill itself.
I mean, I'm still pretty sure your oldest at 5 almost is at this stage where her entire existence is, poop, cry, and try to kill herself. But.
Right. Well, yeah, a little more depth to it than that. But yeah.
Like walking outside the other day, and I'm like, Brooke, where are you? Hi, Uncle Wookie. I'm up in the tree.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
At least she was wearing clothes this time?
She was, and that was her reasoning for going up the tree. I'm wearing clothes, so I'm going to go up in the tree.
Right. What a trip. Yeah. And she's about to turn 5. Like, this is all blown by so fast, and it's
we're on the cusp of February, so literally just under 2 months at this point. She'll be 5.
Yep.
And I know the girls were the wives were signing her up for kindergarten last night,
right,
and getting all that paperwork taken care of.
Where'd my little girl go?
Right?
Like, that's how fast it's happened. Like, it just...
Well, it happens ridiculously fast, as my 2-year-old,
Exactly. Like, blink of an eye. The thing every parent will tell you, any experienced parent will tell any new parent is, take stock in every moment because they blow by. And, when you're not there, you kind of go, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then it happens to you and you go, wow, okay.
And it's ridiculous how quickly they all grow and change and evolve, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm.
I say evolve, half kiddingly, because they're into Pokemon now, and I've been using that to kind of do their a positive reinforcement for potty training.
Right.
But
can I just chuck balls at their heads?
I mean, I guess that's what the new Legend of Arceus, or however you pronounce it, is.
Right.
It's just open world throwing Pokeballs at things.
Okay. So it's Splatoon, but Pokemon.
Pretty much.
Okay.
No, I haven't gotten past the intro. Your daughter played part of the intro yesterday and couldn't quite get. You have to line up where you're throwing it to actually hit.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, she's even still having trouble with Unite. Like, I had to set the controls to basically auto spam attacks, because she would walk up next to someone and
just
get wrecked. Yep. And I'm like, you have to attack them. So she'd push the button once and then go, okay, I attacked it. And she'd sit there and wait for just the special abilities to charge up, because she didn't want the cheese ball attack. She wanted, I want the lightning strike or whatever it is, the fireball, and just get wrecked. How come I'm knocked out again? Like, okay.
Well, she's getting there. I mean, she figured out an RPG yesterday.
Oh,
the Pokemon game.
Oh,
she figured out. Oh, you talk to them. Yeah. Oh, you talk to the different people, and you have to walk around. And if there's a shiny, it's either a quest or an item I'm supposed to pick up.
Right.
So and now they're at the point where they're watching people play games on YouTube, and part of me is like, oh, I'm so proud. And part of me is like,
oh, crap.
What is this crap you're watching?
Right.
Because, I mean, it's not even good games. It's just, some preteens screaming.
Right. And it's the YouTube format of, hello, everybody. It's your boy. Insert name here. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. Blah, 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 blah. Now let's get into
our
gameplay.
Store is here.
Right.
And I'll throw this store information at you every 2 minutes.
Right. And then,
Speaking of, head out to debuffdad.com/store.
But and then over dramatizing every small thing in the game. And it's just like, oh, okay. I mean, it works with the algorithm. Obviously, it's getting in front of my children's eyes. So kudos to you.
I guess that's a kudos.
Right. If you're trying to make success in the YouTube sphere. Spear, because jab me in the eyes with it. But yeah, like they're getting more and more interested in gaming, and I love to see it. And thank you, obviously, for really fostering that with them, because I don't.
Behind on this side, you can see their card boxes that they're slowly getting through,
right,
as they earn more trading cards. So
yeah,
we've started a series of them unboxing their cards on YouTube. If you want to watch that, and then we'll probably end up dropping an article soon about kind of why we're doing this and what's involved with positive reinforcement,
right.
And just, the success we've had, because, getting your girls potty trained, your oldest, it's been what, over a year of trying to make it happen. And, your youngest just didn't care. And then suddenly we started gamifying it, and they were all for it.
Right.
Like, I think they've had 1 or 2 accidents since we started really gamifying it with both of them. And those were, like, truly accidents. Like it wasn't anything they misplanning. It was they were in the car too long, or
Right.
in a place where they couldn't get to it quick enough,
Or they were asleep.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Not as much as that we could be as mad at it, you know, as happy as you can be about having to change your sheets 3 or 4 times a week.
At least they're getting washed.
Right. But yeah, no, like the fact that you've continually exposed them to not just the card game, but you've let them play the Pokemon games, watch the Pokemon videos and whatnot. And it's really driving home. There's more reinforcement to the cards now because they're not just, okay, these are good looking cards. Like she understands that there's a lore and a universe around this, and she legitimately enjoys it. And it's something that I quite frankly don't have the patience for. So.
But once you got involved in it, you would never be able to stop.
It's one of the reasons I'm glad you're doing it. So, yeah, take that, you know, audience members, take that to heart that, you know, sometimes you got to make some sacrifices as a parent to keep your kids engaged and stuff. And fortunately for me, the sacrifice I have to make is I get to hear this guy bitch and complain about my kids all the time because he's the one that's doing all the gamification and having them wreck his computer, destroy his office.
Oh God, my office! You were seeing a very cleaned up version of a small corner of the office. There's piles and piles of crap that the camera is purposely not focused anywhere close to. So, but no, and here's the other part of that: it's okay to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, if it was you and the missus doing it, you guys would not have the same success.
Right.
You know, because going to someone else, it's, oh, here's something special and unique, even though they seem
right. No, it's the old thing of even when we were growing up, you got to go to Grammy's house for the, you know, for special treats, right? So it's almost that same thing. And, you know, in fact, this is kind of Grammy's house as well.
Yes. But, you know, our mother-in-law lives here with us.
Right. So. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still surviving that. I think she's as much to blame for how destructive the place becomes.
Sure.
Oh God. Yeah.
Well, that's a whole nother, you know, good cop, bad cop side of parenting.
Mm-hmm.
And Grammy doesn't have to follow any rules.
Yeah, you know, the hardest part about raising kids is that you can't speak Grammy.
Right. Like and we love her, and it's a dynamic that probably needs to exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's frustrating sometimes. Like, again,
very much so.
Living in the last 2 years that we have, personal space is a premium. So anything that upsets that is just amplified. Mm-hmm. By the fact that you, like, it's not like you go to a job every day and go, well, at least my cubicle there is clean and then I can come home and whatever, you know, a little bit of disarray or even absolute chaos is much more manageable because you have an escape for it. This is your existence. Yep. So, and you know, even the wayward, the wayward Coke can that I'm looking at across the room there is just like, son of a.
Uh-huh.
So.
And for those of you that are watching live or watching the YouTube video, or a VOD. I don't think we have the VODs turned on for Twitch, but if we do,
I think we do.
We have a bit more settings going on. We have updated lens and some settings on the Canon M50 that we use for recording this, and playing with some LUTs and color correction. So trying to get some more depth and interest going on.
Yeah, well, try to make these old men look a little bit better.
Yeah. So yeah, getting old. It sucks.
It does.
But I'm happy to say, though, that I started a family in my 30s rather than my 20s.
Right.
Because it'd be a much different situation.
Yeah, I remember, you know, we come from, again, that era that you hit a certain age and people start going, so when you're going to get married, when you're going to have kids, and you're like, I'm 22.
Right.
Well, your grandparents got married at 18 and look how everything, I see how everything turned out, and it's not an apples and oranges argument. So,
which I love the people that still do those arguments. It's like, in many cases, it is a genuine effort, but it's a completely naive effort that is pushed on everyone.
Right.
Like, my parents, when they got married, could afford to do a summer job and pay for their college
Right.
each semester. My grandfather was able to do a summer job as a waiter at a resort each summer and was able to pay his way through Brooklyn College.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's what, $18,000 a semester, give or take. Now, you're not making $18,000 as a waiter for 2 months. We're frozen.
No,
What?
we're muted.
We're muted.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we muted?
I don't know. I can see it from here, though.
Okay. Well, stand by.
Did you hit the wrong button on the? Hello.
Well then.
There we go. Hey, look at that.
We will definitely be editing that video.
Well, it's a good thing we do the record copy.
Yep. We'll be editing this video and adding it in.
So yeah, where's Tim in chat when we need him, telling us that he can't hear us?
Well, I didn't touch that one.
Yeah, who knows?
Fuck.
Technical difficulty because we just had to completely rebuild that system, and
yeah. Now we realized that apparently all the software that teachers were given during the pandemic to teach remotely actually broke Windows activation.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to completely rebuild the computer because of all the other issues that came up with it.
Right.
So yeah. But for those of you that were enjoying our, pantomime in the background, cheers. And thank you for staying with us.
Make sure you catch us on the podcast feed.
Right. Oh, shit.
What's that?
No. Just, we've literally done 25 minutes and it's all been muted.
Well,
It
again,
happens.
thank God we have backup copies and we're not relying on just the Twitch or even at this point the OBS recording for stuff. That just means I gotta work a little harder to get that first pass back to you, so you can lay it in on this, so that nobody's gonna know. They'll never know.
No. No. All two of us, especially because we keep talking about it.
So where were we?
Well, I think we ended that one relatively nicely, even though it was a crash. But let's talk about what's coming up on your plate.
Oh, yeah. This is my my last weekend in the daylight for the next 10 weeks. I'm going back to graveyards.
Hooray! Graveyards.
Yeah. Again, duty calls, job demands require us to go on another 24-hour skiing, and I'm the go-to guy, which is job security, blessing and a curse, but it does have its drawbacks. When these things come up, I don't have the opportunity to rotate out like many of the other coworkers do. So yeah, I'm not looking horribly forward to that, just because the last time it happened meant I missed out on some of the family time that I get normally. I gained some because that morning routine was very nice, but the afternoons were sometimes just a wash.
Yeah, well, you're going to try and do the weekend, you said.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Again, old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't do those 3 days no sleep like you used to?
I can. It just takes another 5 days to recover from them.
Right.
So, yeah, no, I'm. It's weird being in this position where work demands present opportunities, but those opportunities become horribly inconvenient.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like them. I don't like them. It's just, I'm hoping that someday, if your work is listening to this, please hire me already, please. Right. This is not what I want to do with my life. And, again, I'm very happy that I have the job that I have. And again, I'm obviously good enough at what I do that they put me in these positions where I can be wholly unsupervised for all hours of the night and then put people underneath me. And entrust me to get things done. So,
if they would just pay you more,
right? Much more,
much more. Yeah.
And again, I can't really complain about the pay. It's competitive, especially for the industry, especially for the education required to do my job. Mm-hmm. Right there, you can't pay for common sense. So there's no amount of degrees you could have that would help you do my job better. It's a basic understanding of, thermodynamics and physics. And I say that, cheekily, because that's not the easiest thing in the world to comprehend. Right. But that's why this isn't a minimum wage job. And there's risks involved. There's a lot of my pay that is justified in hazard. Mm-hmm. So, it is what it is. It's afforded me the ability to raise 2 children, purchase a house, be comfortable, put enough of a nest egg away that, when things got a little rough during the pandemic and whatnot, I was able to pull from savings. Mm-hmm. And I've never been more secure in my life than I have over maybe the past decade. And a lot of that has to do with this job just being unexceptionally stable. Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's a blessing in and of itself.
Right. And again, going back to us, using us as a contrast, you out earn me significantly, but you've always been under that, this could be gone next month, 3 mm-hmm. months, whenever, if it's a contract, next year, if the work dries up, et cetera, and then be out of work for 6, 7, 8 months, 3 months, 2 months, whatever. Yeah. It's all unknown. So while you have this influx of cash coming in.
Yeah, the influx of cash right now is us trying to pay off as much debt as possible and
that got accrued
put
from
ourselves
the last,
into it.
Right. But yeah, and that debt accrued from the last time that you went through a work drought.
Yeah.
Right.
And even, Sarah, my missus, my wife, she was in kind of a work drought for a decade. Mm-hmm. As a teacher.
Same with mine. Yeah.
Yep. She was a teacher in a private school, which pays, maybe 60% of what you would get in a public school mm-hmm. because it doesn't have the union to protect it and, support it. So when things went bad back in, 2007, 2008 with the Great Recession and everyone mm-hmm. was laid off, teachers were also. And so she lost her public school capabilities and thankfully was able to land something in private school.
Right.
But that paid barely above minimum wage, mm-hmm. if even that. And then all the extra things that were thrown on top of her that does not fly in a contract is huge. So the fact that we finally, after... your kid's 5, so mm-hmm. how long have you been married? 7?
Let me check my shoe here. 2015?
2015? Yeah. So almost 7 years at this point. That's how long I've known my wife. This is the first time in our relationship, or even knowing each other in passing,
that you've both been in the black.
Been in a situation where we're earning and can start paying down some of the things that came with it. And it wasn't like, oh my God, we're overspending or we're living a lifestyle we can't afford. It was literally like, oh, here's our first kid and the insurance only covered X amount. Right. So we had $15,000 of debt on top of it.
And then, oh, guess what? kids need food, kids need diapers, kids need,
Yeah.
right? Furniture
And
and all those things add up. And again, like you said, you out earned me, but again, you had that drought for so long that a lot of this was just playing catch up.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're still in that catch up mode. I mean, we still probably have close to, I'd say, 80,000, but that's down from almost 200,
right?
If not over.
Yep.
That's not counting the fact that we got lucky with the house we're renting right now that we're recording out of, that they haven't raised the rent rate in the 3 years we've been here.
Right. Which they totally could because the way the housing market's gone. So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. And again, good relationships with that. If you would have been that squeaky neighbor, sure, there have been some issues in this house that required dire attention.
Yeah.
Like when water was pouring out of one of the power outlets.
Oh, yeah. And, the floor just started spurting water. That was fun.
Yeah. And then, of course, the gate around the pool decided it just wanted to deteriorate. And while that's not a big deal when you have kids, children, that's a huge deal. And your landlord's been very attentive about things.
Or the tree that, was rotten and falling on the house.
So yeah, again, good relationships with that. But yeah, again, there's a very stark contrast in our history of earnings that I don't know which of those ways what I would prefer. Like I've done contract work before and I left it because I couldn't manage that instability. And again, that was in my 20s when I was, wild and crazy. And, I was suddenly seeing influxes of, I was making $12,000 a month.
Yep.
And I thought that was just going to keep going. And then one day it dried up. And I went, oh, well, I've got enough of a nest egg. Work will come back in a month, or work will come back in 2 months, 9 months later.
Yeah.
But I was still spending like I was making $12,000 a month, which is something you've managed because, again, this has been your lifestyle.
Well,
you manage that much better than I do. Yeah.
I started off, the entertainment industry is almost entirely contract based. And even if you're a quote unquote W-2 employee, you're still at the whim of, the big companies wanting to hire the smaller companies to do work.
Sure. And the same issue that your brother has, because he's a QA tester in the video game industry, and like he came over here the other day for your daughter's birthday, and he's like, "Yep, I'm in that time of the year where I just don't have work," and this is it's like he's not even mad about it because it's that January is when contracts go away, and then they don't pick them back up until fiscal Q2.
Yep, and with all the stuff going on in the video game industry right now, or even just the mobile industry, because he's kind of been specializing in mobile app development.
Right.
It's been a lot of, change. Disney and Universal, from the entertainment standpoint, are relocating more or less everyone they can to Orlando because it's a third of the price to run a crew there than it is in California.
And they don't have, whatever your affiliation is, they don't have restrictions, mandates, etc. Right. Well, no, I mean, as far as like, you can go to work with COVID-19 and they really don't give an F. And, whatever your personal thoughts on that are, the cost of doing business, that's a whole different animal. Factor out your feelings. If given the opportunity to have workers be able to come to work versus workers not being able to come to work, it's numbers on a spreadsheet. It's cold, it's callous, it sucks. But that's business. And that's why a lot of these businesses are relocating to, coincidentally, more conservative areas because those beliefs are.
Well, it's you look at the money that comes in with a lot of those. The Florida economy is primarily tourism. The Texas economy is primarily oil. And because of that, they're able to offer different things. Vegas, Nevada, the primary thing is gambling. So none of them have income tax.
Right.
Now, are there more progressive areas of all those states? Oh,
sure.
Hell yeah. But in many cases, you'll typically see people that are in there looking at the dollars and the cents.
Right.
looking at more conservative areas in general, because that is better typically from a business standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But it's never a gray,
it's
black
cruel.
and white situation.
It's cruel numbers.
Yep.
And, if you can wrap your head around that, and again, factor out your feelings, I understand completely. That's why this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it absolutely sucks. And the best we can do is, if something moves to that area, you go and you bring your steadfast beliefs with you, and hopefully you can change. Like, there was one point in time, Austin wasn't the liberal mecca that it's now turning into.
Yep.
Right. I forget which one it is, which city it is in Florida that's becoming a more progressive mecca.
Miami, typically.
Yeah, Miami's always kind of been, just because of
but Miami right now is becoming a real tech hotspot, especially around NFTs and blockchain.
Right. But, again, Seattle, Washington was not always progressive, but
it was far from it, and still in most of the places is very far from it.
Right. Same thing with Oregon, outside of Portland and maybe like Grants Pass, they're very conservative. Northern California, very conservative. You get these pockets that aren't, and they're that way because.
And there's one thing I want to point out. We're saying conservative.
Mm-hmm.
We mean conservative in policy. A lot of what we're talking about now in the media talks about conservatives versus liberals, but we are in a very right-leaning demographic country at the moment in general. If we were actually centrists, certain things like, single-payer healthcare and, the child maternity leave and things like that would be standard.
Right.
Like, that's what every democratic country offers out there. But our center has moved so far to the right that it's that to be called a quote unquote conservative in this day and age, you have to be almost an extremist,
right,
in what you're asking for.
Yeah, and I think you and I, a few friends of ours, we've always been kind of moderate, middling, centrist-y, with a liberal shade to it. When it comes to human rights issues, I think the liberal scheme is the only way to go. But on the business side of it,
well, business and economics,
right? Business and economics. There's some merit to being a little more conservative, and we haven't changed our stances, but policies and politics have shifted so much that we're now liberal and progressive by nature funny. Of everything.
It's funny, and I use this example a lot. The fact that people are calling Biden a liberal is hilarious to me. He was, for the longest time, one of the most right-leaning Democrats in the party.
Right.
Because, he was, in that day and age, a centrist. But now that he has not changed any of his views.
Right.
Is now being considered a leftist, socialist, all that sort of thing. Kind of shows you where the spectrum has gone.
Right.
But that's a story for a different podcast.
Yeah, definitely not this one. We don't. Again.
And definitely with more drinking if it is.
Yeah, give us about 2 more of these, and this becomes a political podcast, and we don't ever want to do that because, again, it's
not the point.
That's not the point, right? I'm not here to shit on your religious beliefs, your political beliefs. I have mine. You can accept them, or you can go on your merry way, and or we can sit down and we can have conversations. I will entertain any topic. Until it turns into what is it? Not Moore's law. Can't think of off the top of my head. But in any internet debate, it will eventually devolve into a reference to Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we just don't. Once it gets to that point, it's like you're done arguing.
Yeah. It's not a discussion anymore. It's
that's digging
your
heels in
right.
I've dug my heels in the sand, and there's nothing you can do to convince me otherwise. And it's like, okay, at which point I'm going to disengage because you're right. You're not going to yield to any sort of conversation. You're going to steadfastly say, I'm right, you're wrong, there is no alternative. To which, at that point, it's no longer a debate. It's just an argument, and we're not going to do that.
Yeah, I have much better things to spend my time.
Right.
Speaking of much better things to spend our time on, shall we segue into game and streaming society?
Well, let's. I'm going to take a minute, and I'm going to toot some horns that definitely need to be tooted, and I think you and I both can take a moment to reflect on communities that you and I are involved in. And it's not like we chose them or went and sought them because we were looking for some sort of accolades. You and I have been, at some points passively, some points actively involved in obviously the Guardians mental health,
which we talk about quite
stuff
a bit.
That we talk quite a bit on, right? We're actively involved in that to a certain degree behind the scenes. And then our second or third episode?
Yep.
Our guest Dan Finity,
who we both fanboy over.
Yeah, we fanboy over him because he's just he's a good member of the community. He's always just been kind of, you're a straight shooter kid. Right. He's always,
and he would appreciate that, reference also.
And recently, between December of last year and up into the first week of this year, organizations that we've been connected to have actually received some recognition in big ways. And it feels good that we were part of that. And we've both been leaned on in that. And we've both been thanked vehemently by the people involved in that.
Well, it's recognition and the fact that, I have to say with these organizations that we're a part of, these communities and these streamers and that sort of thing, it's less about, oh my God, we've been recognized, and more about, them recognizing, them being the leadership or the streamer or whoever the heads are, recognizing of themselves, like, no, we want the next step up. We want to take that next challenge. We want to reach that next milestone. And, almost simultaneously, all of them, looking in the mirror and saying, let's do something with this. I have my team behind me who have been exceptional.
Right.
And let's do this together. GMH for the first time, broke their fundraising goals. They were not sponsored, but, did a collaboration with Bungie, a huge video game publisher, and actually still does work with the Bungie organization for their internal development. We talk about Dan Finity quite often because Dano is, an amazing individual.
And quite frankly, Dan is probably the reason we're doing this podcast today.
Well, he's 100% the catalyst for this. And I remember when I was trying to think of what to do with Debuff Dad, I reached out to him, and he's the one that said, well, here's some resources to think about. If you can help one person with it and that's all you need out of it, then do it.
Yep.
That's the whole goal. And, he's really taken the partner push on Twitch seriously lately and has really taken his own content development and personal development and relationship development further.
Right.
We're happy to see that he has proposed to Miss Jenny.
Right, Jen Finity.
We're very excited to see that. He has really taken a step up with streaming and building his community, and you just see the community responding, and not just his community, the overall gaming space.
Yeah, he was recently featured. It'll probably be a couple of weeks back. But if you follow the Destiny community and Bungie in general, he was a subject of a community focus.
Yep.
And us back end guys in the admin community kind of knew it was coming because he was, he reached out to us and go like, I don't want to make an like an ass of myself. Can you just look over my notes real quick and make sure I'm not just a blubbering
Which, by the way, I still only see one of those channels that no one ever posts in.
Right.
So you're like, did you see this thing? I'm like, no.
Right. But, so we knew about it and we were kind of holding it close to the chest here. But yeah, when it came out, it was since they've relaunched this community focus initiative, he was the fourth?
Yeah.
At this point?
I think he's the second of this year.
Gamer Girl Gray.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Who is also an amazing streamer.
Right.
And content creator and activist. Yeah.
And then what's his name? Works. He does the Xbox gamer tag radio. Another prominent figure in the community, and Dan was the fourth. And of those first three, sure, there was positive review on it, but then there was a bunch of members of the community that took umbrage to, well, you're being one with Gamer Girl Gray because she is Indian, not Native American, but from India, content creator that is LGBTQ, et cetera, et cetera.
So you had all the trolls come out.
The trolls come out after them. She had recently done a Bungie bounty, and just having fun, effing around. Decided to do a couple of matches where they dunked on an entire team without ever capturing a point. Mm-hmm. So it left a bad taste in the community's mouth. And then, so they came after her for that. And then they came after her for being Indian. And then they came after her for being LGBTQ. Mm-hmm. Right. And it was just an absolute shit show. To at what point I know we're running close to time and I don't even care.
Go.
Which the Reddit post was locked. And then they had Amaze, and Amaze is a very prominent, positive, motivational Destiny community member.
The hype man of
the hype man of Twitch, not even the hype man of Destiny, the hype man of Twitch. And he's very good at what he does. And he's a very positive, to the point where there's now a term going around, toxic positivity, because he is so positive in the face of any sort of adversity. He will try to spin it to a positive, which I respect him for that. Mm-hmm. But again, the community takes umbrage to it and proceeded to start trolling him. And then the third one, same thing. It was like they were looking at all of these people that were being featured.
Saying, well, what about me?
Well, because and what they didn't understand was, yes, these people were being featured because they were representative of the community, but they weren't, the straight white male that everyone wanted to see. Mm-hmm. So I was very curious, knowing that this was coming up, what are they going to say about Dan? Mm-hmm. Right? Because Dan is Midwestern, middle of Indiana, straight white guy, just honest, humble guy.
Like legitimately a true, he will go out of his way to help anyone who crosses his path, period. And, we're not saying this as
blindly so that he deleted Destiny off of his PS3 or PS4 because he was switching back and forth between PC helps and PS helps, right? And I went to the Reddit and it was like, are we locking this thread too? Was one of the comments on it. It's like, no, we're actually going to let this one fly and we're going to monitor it. Mm-hmm. But and again,
but that taking out all of those other things that we said, it comes down to, there was less for the normal trolls to go after and attack. But at the same time, I think the people in his community and the people that he has touched had such an overwhelming response.
Yes.
That they drowned out any thought or possibility.
There's no way you could come at Dan sideways.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of person he is. And it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered if you wanted to bring up all these. There is nothing you can do to come at Dan sideways because of the human being that he is. And again, I credit him with, one, the fact that I stream at all. Two, the fact that I decided to, get on podcasts. And then 3, start a podcast, create a finger quotes media empire.
Well, I guess there's 2 houses involved. So that's the beginning of an empire.
Yeah. And it's nice to see, again, things that we are involved with getting recognized on the merits of what they do, not because they went out there and shouted from the rooftops. Like, nobody has ever shouted from the rooftops everything that Guardians has done. Nobody has shouted from the rooftops everything that Dan has done, and it's still found its way to percolate to the top. And that's like, there's something to that. You know, something to be said about that when you can, on your own merits, work your way to the top. And it's very redeeming to watch, especially for Dan, get his due.
100%. And, you know, as I said, I think the blessing, if we have to find a blessing in COVID-19 and what's gone on the last couple of years, and even before that, going back to, you know, the recession in the early 2000 or the late 2000s into, you know, 2010 and so on, is that the need for authenticity and the need to, you know, make a legitimate connection and impact has grown significantly. You know, looking at the big term, we're seeing, you know, the great departure or whatever they're calling it, everyone quitting their jobs.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You know, we're seeing all these things because people are looking for what is it that actually, you know,
What matters.
I value?
Yeah.
What matters? And during all of that, we're seeing mental health. We're seeing people taking time for themselves and championing that. We're seeing good, legitimate people who work hard and care about other people.
The fact that over this year, the words mental health have come across the lips of sportscasters, politicians, right? Brands in general, like major brands, are starting to work that into their, you know, into their lexicon because it is something that's been important.
Yeah. And it's always been ignored for, you know, the sake of progress. But, you know, this generation in particular, you know, as people looking out on the world, has said, our priorities are kind of different. That whole golden world of we work hard and, you know, put our heads down and work for 40 years, we'll have a good life.
Right.
Doesn't exist anymore. So let's take advantage of what we can.
Right. And you get this pushback now that, you know, oh, this generation is too soft because they're too involved in their feelings. And I'll push back on that every day and go, you don't realize that was a problem before.
Yeah.
And you want to call it soft because you're still so ingrained in this, whatever this is, that, you know, grr mentality.
Well, I'll go back to like,
you know, how dare a guy have feelings?
You know, I don't watch enough sports ball for, you know, for me to remember the name, but there was that one baseball player who, you know, hey, any of you that play video games, when's the last time you got laid? And then Young Khan ratioing him on his own tweet about that. Young Khan, you know, being like, yeah, I'm a, you know, game player. I have, you know, this disease. I, you know, can bench this. I have my own business. Oh, and I got laid last night. F you.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, and so we're seeing a rise of that and people championing it. And, you know, they're calling it cancel culture or whatever, but, you know, we're seeing legitimately people putting their money where their mouth is.
Right.
You know, as consumers, as parents, as brothers and sisters, as, you know, individuals suddenly having a say.
Yep.
You know, every one of the communities we're a part of has said, well, we've struggled with certain things, and this is what we're overcoming, and this is what we're doing. This is what we've decided to do with our life.
Yep.
And every one of them is still in a process of reevaluating and continuing to grow because they realize that, you know, trying to be the same thing they were a year ago isn't necessarily what they want or isn't necessarily what they need to be.
Right.
And that growth, that continued evolution, going back to, you know, what we were joking about earlier, is huge.
That, folks, is what we call a callback.
So, you know, with that, we were talking about Dan in particular. You know, we both, Nate Fu and I, were very happy to have been a part of helping to.
Well, I mean, you were just passive.
I was completely passive because for whatever reason, people keep forgetting that, you know, I was a part of it. But no,
and a lot of the, like, we chuckle about this, and a lot of that was, you know, again, in both of those communities, you know,
I take a back seat and I let things
Very
happen.
much
I
so.
kind of,
Yeah.
well, I'm a project manager. I let
Right.
things help and I help shift it. But that goes back to, GMH, Guardians Mental Health, where at first they didn't, the head, Joe, didn't know if, True Data was another person or just a different account you used.
Right.
But no, we were a part of helping to put together an amazing gift. We helped Dan get a new computer set up that we all contributed to. And, he's doing this partner push. He's doing these capabilities. We wanted to make sure he had the right tools to make it happen.
Right.
And this was not, us. This was started by one of his, first original mods who he plays with weekly.
Yep.
And, pulling the community together of, hey, what can we do to make it happen?
Right. How feasible is this? And the community just glommed on and we're like, we'll do this. We'll make this happen. And between labor, parts, donations, whatnot, like
we ended up with a surplus.
We ended up with a surplus. We were able to upgrade certain things for him and make this give him something meaningful. And again, this was when you know him as a content creator, what you see on the screen is one thing. What you hear on the back end is like, God, I spent 3 hours last night trying to do this thing to get this the way I wanted it. And it's just it's struggling. So to be able to alleviate that from him and let it help his workflow.
Yeah, very much so.
That's how much we appreciate what he does, that we just want to make that so much easier.
Yeah, definitely. And, speaking of evolution and changes and people taking risks, I also want to do a shout out to the Dizzies, who, at this point have decided both of them are going to go full time into the either content development or design and graphic design field.
Yep.
And have really invested a lot of time and energy into building that up.
Yep.
And, they're the ones that have done a significant amount of our design work for Debuff Dad.
Yep. And they did the assets for the stream, the transitions, et cetera, et cetera.
My new logo, which, actually is pretty damn sexy. They just did some stuff for my company for a kind of weekly LinkedIn video that they want to be putting out.
Right.
And they're just, again, all around good people that work hard, have built relationships with people, and they're genuine, and they legitimately just want to do good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the community pulling around them and trying to give them the opportunity and the resources to make that happen.
Right.
And, I want that to kind of be the theme of, what are we, 2022?
Mm-hmm.
Is seeing people take risks and have the community there to help them succeed. If I could wish for anything else, whether that risk is, hey, I want to get married or, propose to someone, or hey, I want to have a kid, or I want to start a business, or I want to take streaming full time, or whatever that is, know that if you're genuine, if you care, people will notice.
Yeah. Be authentic.
Be authentic, and people will be there for you.
Yep. I'm sure over the course of 35 episodes, I've probably said something somewhere that has upset someone. And that's fine.
You upset me all the time.
Exactly. And I'm always open to, you want to come back at me and have a serious conversation with it. I'm more than happy to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Just do it in our Discord. So, we get some attention.
Just come at me on Twitter. I'm fine. But again, I'm authentic and steadfast in what I believe in. And I feel comfortable doing that because of people that have influenced me, that said that, that's made that capable. Right.
Mm-hmm. So I think along those lines, that's a good place to kind of end, especially since it's noon and your game's about to start.
Yeah, go Bengals.
So with that, go Bengals, go community, go leaders.
Go do good stuff.
Go do good stuff.
Yep.
And from episode 35 of the Whiskey Podcast, I'm True Data.
I am Nate Fu.
Let's get shit done and kick some ass.
Hoo day.